Hey guys, we're here at our final location, which is
The old French house. So
we're gonna go check it out. And I want you guys to come on in. Let's go.
All right, so this is the old French house. It is the only old French house left in Indiana. This was rediscovered in the early 1970s and fixed up to be what it was originally. So this was the home of Michel Brulette, who was a French fur trader. He built this home circa 1806, and he, of course, his father was a fur trader. He was a fur trader. He had a trading post. He knew William Henry Harrison and actually did some work for him. And this is a good example of what I call upper middle class home for the French fur traders, because he was very successful. So the first room we have is the main room. And in our room here, we have a table here. This is a dinner table. And on our table, we have a few things that tell us about the French that lived here before. Okay, so the first thing I always pick up are a deck of playing cards. And that's because, of course, they did play card games, but it's also symbolic of the fact that these people had a good time. They had balls and parties. As we say, they worked hard and played hard. So they had a good time. Another thing that you'll notice here
The pipe
is a pipe here. The French always had a pipe in their mouth. The Frenchmen, smoking was a big deal for them, and they always had a pipe in their mouth. In fact, they used to say that the only two times a Frenchman didn't have a pipe in his mouth is if he were sleeping or eating. And in fact, so much was the pipe associated with the Frenchman out here that if a Frenchman died, the expression was that he broke his pipe. He broke his pipe, meaning that he died. Now, the other things we have on the table, I like to say to people that food, of course, is important to every culture in the world.
Yeah.
You have to eat to live. But come on, these people are French.
Yeah.
It's like really important to them. And key to that, of course,
the bread.
bread. They would grow the grain and bake the bread. And they were very serious about their bread. They eat it with every meal, pretty much. And how serious were they about their bread? Well, check out this table, because if I move this top, it holds a secret.
Oh, where they would put all their stuff inside.
That's called a dough table. You would put the dough in here to rise.
Oh, wow.
Next to the fire. And then cover it up, keep the bugs or whatever flies off of it. So you set it there next to the fire here to rise. They were serious about their bread. They were also very good gardeners. They'd have a big garden in the backyard where they grow everything they needed. A lot of onions, lots of onions. And then, of course, we can't talk about food and drink
Without the water.
wine.
Oh, wine, okay.
Oh, yeah, they were French. They would grow the grapes and make the wine. And they drank wine with every meal. One thing I tell students, they have to understand that back at this time period, water could be very dangerous. Now, we think of water as being healthy, and it is.
Yeah.
But back at this time period, where you didn't have any way to clean the water properly, it could be very dangerous, and it could kill you.
Yeah.
So a lot of cultures would pick different drinks, and of course, alcohol drinks were a big deal. One of the benefits was, well, it killed bacteria in the water.
Yeah.
The stuff that could make you sick, alcohol would take care of that. And the French, of course, their choice of alcohol, wine. So they would drink a lot of wine with every meal. Now, this interesting thing right here, a lot of people ask about this. This is a oil lamp, and it looks complicated, but it's actually very simple. You just use that to lower or raise the lamp.
Wow.
So let's say you want to write a letter. Well, lower it down so it's close to where you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
Or say you have some company over, you raise it up so the light will disperse better. So looks complicated, but it's a very simple thing.
That is cool.
Where they would heat the home in the wintertime and cook the food.
Stay warm.
Yep, staying warm. Now, a neat thing here over by our fireplace, a couple of neat things. This right here
Ooh, that's a big pain.
Oh yes, you know, this was used for Mardi Gras. Ah, they were French, they celebrated Mardi Gras, but not like we think of today, no. Back then, the big thing for Mardi Gras, right, it was right before Lent, they would have a big party and have pancakes.
Oh, wow.
Well, crepes for the French, but we would say pancakes. But they'd have crepes because some of the ingredients were not allowed, according to the Pope, during Lent. So you would hurry up and use them and have a big party and make crepes. And they even had syrup, because right across the river from us, there was a Native American sugar camp where they would make sugars and syrups. So you can imagine back then in the early 1700s or mid 1700s, you would have a big party with basically pancakes and syrup. But the reason for this long handle is that one of the activities on Mardi Gras was for all the girls. They would have a competition, and they would see who could flip the pancakes like this and catch them. And they'd even run and do this outside and do games like that. And as I say, of course, the boys and the men, they had a competition on who could eat the most crepes or pancakes. So there you go. And then over here, I didn't mention this earlier, but we have, this is a beaver pelt. So when we say they were French fur traders, this is what they were doing. They wanted these beaver fur because they would send them back to Europe and to be made into hats and clothes. Mainly, the beaver fur was mainly hats, beaver hats, a big deal. And the way the French fur traders would get these, I always say they did not have to hunt or trap these beaver.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do that. All they had to do was go around and meet different Native American tribes, make business deals with them, and they would get furs, and then in return, the tribes would get all kinds of different items, some of which we'll see upstairs in a moment.
That's cool.
But this is a real beaver pelt. We have the girls' room. So Jacques Roulette had boys and girls. So this would have been the girls' room. And one of the things we have in the girls' room, obviously you can see it's not set up like a girls' room that you think of. But one thing we do have in here is part of the home, or part of the building, to show you what we mean by old French house. And this is what we mean. This design was used by the French, different from other groups. They used something called the post-on-seal method of home building, where you'd have a seal, and then you'd have vertical posts, and they'd attach them together. And then in between the posts, you would have these stakes, so it almost looked like a ladder going up. And then over those stakes, you would take this stuff they call bussiage, which was a mixture of prairie grass and mud and clay and the like. And it'd be dried out in long sheets, and then they'd wrap it over the stakes, right? And then fill it in. That was basically like insulation.
Wow. And
And then when you're done with that, the last step was to take mussel shells, and we have a mussel shell here from the Wabash. A lot of mussels in the Wabash. And they would smash these up and make a plaster. And they would rub that over everything. So what you can see here, this is the actual home, the actual building, and you can see some plaster left. There's some bussiage, and there's some of the beams. So this is, unlike some of the other buildings, this is the actual building. So this is, you can see. And all these marks in here on the wood, that was done to hold the plaster. So they did that on purpose. Chopped it up and made little hash marks, as we say, to hold the plaster. And then one thing that would happen with homes like this, being made out of this bussiage, one negative is that a person could sit in their chair, lean back and poke a hole in the wall. Because this is just plaster, and if they're big enough, they'd lean back, and it's heavy enough, it might poke a hole in the wall. So how do we stop that from happening? Well, they took wooden boards and nailed them across to catch the chair from hitting the wall, and we now call those chair rails. So that's something the French did to stop the chair from hitting the wall and poking a hole in the wall. So that became a design choice. Is interesting. This is an actual piece of furniture from the time period. You see the date 1759 scratched into it. It was handmade. It's French. And what I always ask people when they see this, I say, guess what this is? guess what it is? And a lot of times people will say it's an armoire. Well, it was used for that one time. But what it was originally, if I open this up, you can see it was a bed.
Oh, wow.
This is called a closet bed. Now, our bed's kind of sinking now. We have to fix it. But this is a closet bed. And people would get in here in the winter, keep the heat in.
Yeah.
You'd shut the doors and the body heat. Now, people are surprised when I say you'd have 2 or 3 people cuddled up in here.
Wow.
Well, people were little back then. Master bedroom. This is where Michel Roulette and his wife would sleep. And our bed here, as you can see, if you ever heard of rope beds, this is a rope bed held together with ropes. And in fact, that's where we get the expression sleep tight. Because back then, before you went to bed, you'd have to tighten up your ropes before you got in bed. Otherwise, you'd end up on the floor, right? We won't mention the bed bugs part. We'll get that one out. Is an extra bed. And this would have been originally been shoved underneath. We would call it a trundle bed today. But that was a very, very common thing to do, to have an extra bed. You always want to utilize as much space as you can. And I always tell people that this could be an extra bed for one of the children, maybe. Or, since he's a businessman, as a fur trader, this may be an extra bed for a guest. You may not have an extra room, but you can pull out an extra bed and show your hospitality by offering a bed. Now, I always make this mistake when I come into this room. I always mistakenly call it the master bedroom when it's actually a master suite. Okay. To be a master suite, if you know, we have to have a bedroom and a bathroom. And over here, we have the chamber pot.
Which is the bathroom?
Yes, this is for the nights when you don't want to have to go out to the outhouse. You go down the corner and do your business in the pot in the corner. Of course, what children always love, our students that come visit us, is I explain to them that in the next morning, it's actually the chore of one of the children to go around and empty out all the chamber pots.
Oh, wow.
So one of the kids would have to walk around and do that. And here's the best part. How they would empty it out, they would open up the front door and throw it in the street. Oh, wow. Yes. So this is where I remind our visitors, be happy you live now. It was pretty nasty back then, shutting certain things. Yeah. So very, very happy you live now. But this is the chamber pot. Would have been sitting in the corner pretty much everywhere.
We're about to head upstairs and we're going to check out some more.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you guys are ready for this. Let's go. It's kind of a tight squeeze.
Yeah. All right, so here we are upstairs. Now this would have actually been the boys' rooms. We saw the girls' room downstairs. But just like with the girls' room, it wasn't really set up to be a girls' room right now. Same thing goes with up here. So up here we have a display, as you can see, and this is to show a little bit more about the fur trade, which was the business of Michel Roulette. So the first thing of note is this great big thing. This is actually called a pirogue, not a canoe. It's French. Pirogue. Basically, it's a French canoe. But called a pirogue.
That is big, too.
Yeah, very big. And this is what they would use, the fur traders going up and down the rivers. The rivers were the highways of the day. So they would go up and down the rivers, and they would stop at certain points and walk trails. And then from there, they would meet different Native American tribes. They'd go visit tribes, villages, and start talking with them, trading with them. And they would carry everything they need on the pirogue. So everything they needed.
Even had the barrels.
Yep, barrels of stuff. And we see our voyageurs up here.
And he's got his pipe.
Yep, has his pipe. And our voyageur over here has his sock hat. It's probably the big famous symbol of the voyageur is the sock hat and big puffy shirt. What's very fascinating from giving tours to lots of different people, a lot of Americans and American kids don't know a whole lot about fur traders, but if we have anybody come from Canada, boy, they know a lot. That's a big deal for them. So their students are always taught a whole lot about the voyageurs and the fur traders and all that kind of stuff. So it's just an interesting thing. And there's fascinating is down here we have some of the items that the Native Americans got. So this is a fur trade. So of course we know that the French wanted the furs. Well, what did the Native Americans get out of this trade? Well, lots of different things. This is just a sample of some things, but silks and fabrics would be traded. Yep, this would be traded. Also pattern fabric, which I don't have an example of right now. Well, kind of like that guy's
hat.
Yeah, like a bandana, stuff like that would be traded. Now, interesting, one of the most in-demand trade items, pretty much second only to the musket, is the trade shirt. And it's a simple shirt like this. This would be very popular with Native Americans. And I have to explain to people, the reason for that is, can you imagine going out and having to hunt the animal?
Yeah.
You know, and then once you've gotten the animal, well, you have to skin it and clean the hide and tan it, stitch it together, and then when you're done, it's not all that comfortable.
Yeah.
Or you could trade and get this, right? So now you know why it's so popular. So Native Americans would wear a lot of shirts like this out here. Cloth belts were very popular and be traded. Another interesting thing that people are surprised by, and that's the tomahawk. Tomahawks like this only existed because of the fur trade.
Yeah.
Because, as I mentioned a lot of times, that the Native Americans didn't have this, and they didn't know how to make it. So it was actually European blacksmiths who would make these, and then they would be traded with Native Americans. And then, of course, tobacco and pipes, spoons and forks and knives, utensils, things like that.
It looks like jewelry right here.
Yes, lots of jewelry. A lot of silver items were very popular, and beads and things were big trade items. And one thing is, yeah, here's some armbands. Now these right here, what's interesting about those is that these are cuffs that were used with the big puffy shirts. So French fur traders, their style was to have big puffy shirts. And as you see, this guy here has an armband tied.
Yeah.
The problem with the puffy shirt is, well, your sleeves might be too long.
Yeah.
So you just crunch them up and tie it. Well, if you were really fancy, you would have a metal cuff instead of a tie. And that's where these came from, these metal cuffs. And what's interesting is that Native Americans would use them with their shirts, but then they started to cuff these on their bare arm.
Yeah.
And that's where we get that image of Native Americans with these armbands. Well, that was actually metal cuffs for these shirts. And like I said, all these trinkets and everything. What's interesting to some people is that most Native American tribes, the men were what we call the peacocks.
Okay.
They're the ones that wanted all the jewelry and the feathers.
And
that made them more of a warrior.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, opposite to a lot of the Europeans.
Yeah.
Right? So the men would want all that stuff. They're the ones that really wanted the jewelry and things. And then over here we have the star of the show, the beaver.
Yeah. So I was gonna say the beaver.
It all is because of him. This is our mascot beaver. And like I said, everything.
Oh, I thought he was gonna come alive.
Yeah, he's gonna come alive. He came out. You know. No, we call him Justin.
Look at Justin.
See how many viewers catch that joke. Justin Beaver.
Justin Beaver. What do y'all think about that? Justin Beaver.
But yeah, it's all because of this animal here is kind of where all this develops, and then the community and the territory and everything kind of comes out of that. Now, we go from that, and over here, I'll take this case off of here, is a beaver hat. So this is what was all the rage. This is what was popular. People were wanting these hats, and that's what really fueled the fur trade, is the beaver fur to make these hats. Wow. And now these hats like this were actually made in Paris. They wouldn't make them here. They would just get the materials and send them to Paris. And one of the downsides of these hats, or one of the negative side effects, is that in order to get the hat like this, the fabric or the fur, to get it to form into a hat shaped like this, they had to soak it in a bath of a chemical bath, right? Unfortunately, that chemical was poisonous.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was a lot of hat makers in Paris, for example, and London too, would start to get sick standing over this chemical bath, right, soaking on this fur. And that's where the expression comes from, a Mad Hatter's disease.
Yeah.
Or you're as mad as a hatter, because it would make them go crazy. And then, of course, most famously, Lewis Carroll had the character of the Mad Hatter, who, of course, wore a beaver hat.
Wow.
Now, in the suspense, yes, the chemical was mercury.
Okay.
They were all getting mercury poisoning, but they didn't know it back then. But here's the hat. We didn't have to worry about that here in Vincennes because nobody was making the hats here. They were just getting the raw materials for it. So.
Oh man, that was awesome, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, make sure you come here and check out the whole historical area. Like I said, my man here, John will actually give you the tour, and make sure you come talk to him. And like I said, this was an awesome tour. I want to thank you all for coming along on this tour with me. And like I said, it was fun, John. Like I said, John, you taught us a lot too. So
yeah, fill your brain up.
Yeah, and it makes you think, you know, I mean, back in the 1800s, man, I mean, there's just so much that we should be grateful for today. Like the toilet, like you got to sit on that little bowl.
That's my favorite invention of all time, flush toilet.
Yeah, instead of going out to an outhouse, you know, like maybe some of you may not know what an outhouse is. I'll give you a description. I will put it on the video or in the pictures so you guys can see the outhouse. So I definitely want to thank Mr. John for all of this.
Coming.
This was an awesome tour. Make sure you like, you comment, and subscribe and share. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Like I said, I will see you in my next location. And me and John's just going to take a little trip. And we're going to venture on somewhere, I guess, to our next location.